Welcome to the High Ticket Success Podcast, where premium coaches, consultants, and advisors come for bold strategies, big breakthroughs, and real results. I'm your host, Dave Dubeau. Hey, gang, welcome back. Today's special treat. We have a very successful entrepreneur, best-selling author, and somebody who helps us get our heads on straight and focus on fixing what we can fix and what we really should be focusing on. And that is Kevin St. Clergy. Kevin, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's a good looking book you got behind you there, my friend. Beyond Blind Blaming. Lots of B's in there. I like the sound of that. And I've been just poking around a little bit before we jumped on the interview, looking at that, and it sounds like your take on things is a lot of us focus on the wrong issues when it comes to why we're screwing up or why we're not accomplishing what we want to accomplish in our lives. And you call that blind blaming. So maybe define what that actually means first.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll start with a story. There's kind of an origin
Yeah,
story that seems to hit home for people. When I was
sure.
10 years old, I was a phenomenal baseball player, and I had a batting average of 550. And for those
Wow.
of you listening who don't know anything about baseball, that's not really good. That's actually incredible and great. Babe Ruth
Yeah.
in his heyday, 394. People were approaching my dad. My dad already knew because he was my coach back then that we need to develop this kid and get him ready for the next league. And so we went to work. We went to work on my mindset. We went to work on my swing and everything else. And I was having the time of my life because I got to spend every day with my dad. He even built this a baseball diamond in the neighborhood where all the other kids could pitch against me and even improve even more. But when I stood up to bat at the 11-year-old league, something was different. I started swinging and missing. In fact, I missed every single pitch, every single game for the entire year. I literally went from hero to zero, zero batting average the next year. And you can probably guess what I heard from the stands. Come on, kid, keep your head in the game. Play to win this time. And I know you can imagine the lectures I got from my father on the way home about all the stuff I did wrong and how bad my attitude was. Some other choice words, too. And
Mhm.
then the next year, I only played 2 games, sat on the bench most of the season. And then I started to blame myself and I quit. And 2 weeks after I quit baseball, we found out what the real problem was. The eye doctor said, sorry, kid's practically blind without glasses. But here's the real problem. At no point during that almost 3 year stint did the adults in my life stop blaming me for something that was out of my control completely. And we call it blind blaming. It started as a TED Talk, started sharing it on my podcast with other successful authors, John Gray, Jack Canfield, some other pretty big names who kept saying, man, this TED Talk would be a great book. This would be a great book. And I was like, I don't want to write another book. It's a lot of work. And one finally said, I think you have a duty to write this book, Kevin. I think it could impact millions of lives. So we did. And it's been a big hit. So it's not that people are failing at solving their problems. They're succeeding at solving the wrong problem perfectly. And I see it every day in
Yeah,
business
what was
and
yeah, so I
everything.
kind of
So
get it with your example there with the baseball story and needing glasses and how rapid of a change that was obviously in your eyesight from age 8 to like, 9, I guess it was, or whatever it was, right? Or
yeah,
10
10
to
to
11,
12. Yeah.
10 to 12, right? Sorry. How do you see this showing up for most of us these days? Where are we blind blaming ourselves in our own lives typically?
Yeah. So I've just started working with a coach who does podcast guesting. That's oddly enough.
Hmm.
She really thought that her main problem was her sales team. So I just need to get better closers on board and took her through because we developed a whole process. We can get into it briefly to help people move beyond blind blaming and
Yeah.
took her through the process and there's assessment that goes along with it. And it wasn't that, it was her business model and her offer and also her targeting. Because all I did is ask her one question, like, well, who's your favorite client you work with? And her face lit up and she described a certain type of client that she really likes. I was like, well, why aren't you focused on them? And she's like, I don't know. I was like, and then you're still running your business like it's 2020 when everybody wanted podcasting and it's kind of normalized now. So why are you still selling like it's 2020? I think we need to change the business model, adjust the offer, and then develop a sales process around that.
Okay.
She just kept hiring salespeople after salespeople and kept getting the same results over and over again because she swore it was that. In fact, when we started to work on our sales process again, she actually started crying. And she tells us publicly. So if anybody knows who she is or guesses who she is, it doesn't matter. She's very open about what happened.
Well, you can share her
But
name if you're comfortable with it. That's
yeah,
fine.
it's interview connections with Jessica. She's a
Hmm.
great business owner. She's incredible. But she started crying because she's like, oh my God, this has been sitting in front of me the whole time and I didn't see it. And it's just human nature. There's these
Yeah.
cognitive biases that we all have that keep us from seeing things, like availability biases. The first thing that pops into our head, that's it. That's what I need to fix. Problem is, it's usually not the right thing to fix. And then what happens is we become a treasure hunter to justify or back up what we thought, our belief, and we start ignoring other contradictory data.
Mm.
Confirmation bias, it's called. And then when you're busy doing those two things, you're not really focused on finding the solution to the right problem. And that's what keeps people stuck for years or even decades, I'm finding,
Or lifetimes. Yeah, exactly.
or lifetimes,
Yeah.
especially in the industry that you or your listeners are in, coaches, consultants. I see it with them too.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, well, that was a great example there, Kevin. So you've got a book all about this, but maybe we can kind of give people a few pointers on how to see if they've got this going on in their own lives, because I kind of suspect most of us do in one area or another have some sort of blind blaming going on. So how can we kind of step back and see where we might be doing this ourselves?
Yeah. So we call it the RCD method. So the first step is R, reflect. And it's a simple question. It goes a little deeper in the book, but is there something else going on that I can't see? And so you want to make a list of some other things that it could be that you may not have thought of before. And then C stands for connect. And that's where you want to connect with a coach or a mastermind group. Speaking of high end things that we could look at. But a
Mhm.
lot of times the plumber has the leakiest faucet. And it's almost impossible for you to see when you're stuck in this blame loop that we describe in the book. It's almost physiologically impossible for you to see a different way of doing something. You need somebody from outside of your sphere of influence to come in and say, I don't think that's what it is. You're not seeing what I can see. Or
Right.
sometimes it's in a mastermind group, since I know a lot of your listeners probably have high end mastermind groups just like we do. It's interesting to me to see those people in the mastermind groups coach each other and see something sometimes the coach doesn't see. So I've always recommended too. So connecting, and it doesn't have to be a coach or mastermind. I just prefer paid groups because people that pay attention, which I
Right.
think all of your listeners know and agree with the
Mhm.
research I did about your show. And then finally, once you've got what you think it is and what your coach or your mastermind has brought to light, D stands for decide. And this came from I had a coaching client who was she was about to double her business by making an acquisition. She had two different loan companies that were coming at her with better offers every month. And 2 months into it on our coaching call, she said, "Well, what do you think I should do?" And I said, "Kayla, I think you just need to make an effing decision." I didn't say effing. I don't want to cuss on your show. I didn't get permission before. And so she's like, "You're right." And I've worked with this woman since she started her business. She's doing well. Um, but on the next coaching call, I said, "What's going well?" And she's like, "Kevin, I'm MFDing all over the place. You changed my life. My husband's noticed. Everybody notices." And I'm like, "What are you talking about, MFD?" She's like, "Yeah, make an effing decision. I'm doing it. And I'm doing it like over and over again. And we're finally moving forward." I'm like, "Kayla, that's awesome. Can I use that in my book?" And she's like, "Absolutely. Use my name anytime because it's true. You help me get out of my own way." So reflect, is there something else going on? Connect with an outside source that's not stuck with your successes and or failures to get an outside opinion, and then make a decision. Do something. If you want something different, you have to do something different. And I didn't realize this when I wrote it. I was a little nervous about it. Second guy I had read the book, his name was Jack Canfield, wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I loved it because he was on video. They wouldn't let me use it as a testimony, but he's like, "Man, I love your effing part too." And I'm like, "Oh man, I got Jack Canfield to say the F word on video." So anyway, everybody seems to like that the most. And I was like, "What's your big takeaway?" MFD, MFD, MFD. So people are putting on their coffee mugs and their tennis shoes. I didn't expect any of this, but it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, very cool. So, Kevin, if you don't mind, maybe share a little bit about you and your business. Like, what's your business model? Who do you work with? How do you help people? Because it's beyond just coaching, right? Like you do some different things. If
We
I
do, yeah. We have a certification. So we've had a lot of coaches approach us. I always thought when I wrote the book, since it does apply to anyone who can fog a mirror, we all blind blame, all of
yeah.
us at one point. The key is to make people more aware of it, which is what we're trying to do, and then teach them a way to get beyond it. But we've had coaches approach us and they want to be trained on how to be certified and to teach that blind blaming methodology, which I'm all for. I didn't expect that in the beginning. So we have a kind of a medium to high end coaching program for that. We also in a mastermind group right now, we've got real estate, audiology, dental, and we are just launching one for coaches too. So that's the 25 and $50,000 masterminds for people. They have to be doing $1 million a year to be in that program.
Mhm.
And it's been very successful. I think the real estate, we've got about 40 people in that. We've got And some of the other medicals, one that it's fresh on my mind because we just went over the numbers, but we got 40 people at that 25K level and 10 people at the 50K level. And to get to that 50K level, we have a little ascension program. So they have to be in the main group for 2 years, show that they're involved, show up for the meetings, be present. There's some other requirements that we have before they can even qualify for the elite level.
Mhm.
And then I have a real estate investment company too.
Very, very cool. All right. Just out of curiosity, what kind of real estate investing do you focus on these days, Kevin?
Long term, I like buy and hold, long term wealth. Number one for the
Single
tax
family homes,
reasons.
multifamily,
Single
subs.
family homes, here's my rules. I'll teach everybody if you ever want to get into real estate, this is the best thing I ever learned. Mid 90s and younger. I don't pay more than a $100 per square foot. There's markets out there where you can find these. I like to
Mhm.
get $1 per square foot per month in rent, and I never buy from a realtor. I always buy from a wholesaler. I have 5 wholesalers that work for me, and they go out and they find deals. And I always get the
Very
houses for 30 to 40% of what they're worth. So we have instant equity day one. We cash flow within a couple of months because they're mid 90s and younger. We don't really focus on repairs as much because we don't have to. And
Yeah,
then long term, there's not many repairs we have to do because there's not much that can go wrong with a newer home.
very cool. All right. Well, this is more on the this show, but that's
Right,
always curious
agreed.
because I got that show too. So
Oh,
that's good
okay. I
stuff.
see the real estate. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the buy and hold. I've done a couple of flips and it's gone okay, but then the money's gone and it's you
Yeah,
move
yeah.
on and then
It's a lot of work, that's for sure.
yeah, a lot of
Quick
work.
talk. Okay, so very, very cool. How did like this whole blind blaming thing? I understand the origin story when you're a kid and kind of, but how did this become a business model for you? When did that light bulb really go off for you?
It was from the very beginning. So my first book that I wrote, we did $50 million in sales. And then we had a successful exit in 2022. And it started as a marketing agency, but it turned into a coaching agency. It was very interesting because the marketing, digital marketing, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And a lot of people listen to this know that. When
Yeah.
it's done well and it's done right over time, it can work really well for you. But we really tried to help people grow their business by coaching them. And after that successful sale, because Russell Brunson was my coach 20 years ago, back when it was only $6,000 to work with him,
Hmm.
which I still had to scrounge together on 3 different credit cards back in the 2004-ish range, five range, somewhere in there. And he's the first guy that I called when I sold the business. Like, man, if you wouldn't have taught me into how to develop funnels, even before we called them funnels back then,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I'm at today. But after I got done, I went and got my one stupid purchase, got the Lambo and came home to a small party and one person said, "What's next?" And I'm like, "Ah, man, I don't know. Kind of thought I was done." They're like, "You're only 50 years old, Kev. You're not done. Gotta be something else. Otherwise, you'll be busy day drinking." And it started to scare me a little bit. I was like, "Well, shut up. You're probably right. I probably need to find something else to do." So came in the office and then saw a book on how to write a TED Talk. So I joined a mastermind group with a woman who was on TED.com. Heather
Yeah.
Monahan, great woman, taught me a lot, hooked me up with some writers, and they took me through this really cool exercise for 2 weeks of all the lessons that I've had in my life for 50 years that I've been on the planet at that time. And they really liked that baseball story. And as we were going through it and I was presenting it to them, I just came up with like, what do you guys think about blind blaming? I mean, this is what I'm seeing in business, and it doesn't really matter what business you're in. I saw this in my agency all the time. People would sit there and blame me because they had a slow month and they didn't think their website was working. And then I go and listen to their calls, and they're only answering 50% of the calls coming in. And the ones that they did answer, they didn't have a script, and they were blowing half the leads that were coming in.
Yeah.
And they loved it. They were like, blind blaming, that's so unique. And we actually, quick story, we just said, okay, well, blind blaming is available. That's a sign. And blindblaming.com was available. So that's how we did it. But I've always known when I write books, this is my seventh, I've always built a business behind the book. And I know one of your episodes was on, will a book help a coach? And I wholeheartedly agree that yes, it will. There is
Yeah.
something about having something that thumps on a desk at a conference or when you're doing a keynote speech or a podcast when you can send them a free copy of your book. Because people used to always ask me, are you making a lot of money selling your book? No, but I'm making a ton of money giving it away. And
Hmm.
that's what Russell Brunson taught me. Because at the time, I was making 3 grand a month selling the book. And he's like, man, this is a sexy title. It's a great book. You need to give it away for free. I'm like, Russell, man, I'm making 3 grand a month selling this book. He's like, Kevin, I did $6 million this year, which is nothing compared to what he does now.
Yeah.
Who should you listen to? And I'm like, fine. So it was my first experience of having to actually listen to a coach and do what they say, even when deep down in my soul, it didn't feel right.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how we got where we are here. So then I knew we were going to develop coaching programs and things around it. And the certification made perfect sense because people really like the concept. They love the book. And they're like, hey, can I use this in my own practice? I was like, yeah, we're putting together a certification program right now. Same one. The people that helped me did John Maxwell's. They did Jack Canfield. They did Bob Proctor's. So it's turned out to be pretty cool.
Very, very cool. So, Kevin, what are, as we're recording this right now, we're at the beginning of March 2026. Where do you see yourself taking your business over the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, the goal is to help 100 million people get to the root cause of what they can't seem to fix.
Hmm.
As far as financial goals, we're trying to drive this to $50 million in business with $10 million in EBITDA because I know just because I sold my other company, still have ownership in that, and they're trying to drive it to a similar number. And it's worth $100 million. So the next goal is a $100 million exit.
Nice, nice. So, Kevin, I understand you've got something for folks if they want to connect with you or find out more or get their hands on the book. What should they do? Where should they go?
Yeah, the book's on Amazon, so that's where I like to send people to get it from Amazon. It's much easier. And on our website, we have been doing something that's been really fun the last several months. We created a readiness assessment with a 90-minute intensive call with me. So it's a 77-question assessment that will let you know if you're ready to scale your business. It's pretty fun because it does identify some things you work on. And then we do a 90-minute intensive call with me where I help you put together a 30, 60, and 90-day plan. And it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy the calls, and people get a lot of value out of it.
So, to get a hold of that, where do they go?
Blindblaming.com/assess. Blindblaming.com/assess. And if you just search for Beyond Blind Blaming on Amazon, you'll find the book.
Awesome. Kevin, this has been great. Thank you very much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Hey, thanks for having me. A lot of fun.
All right, everybody, take care, and we will see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to the High Ticket Success Podcast. Want to be featured, share your story, and inspire other premium coaches, consultants, and advisors? Apply now at highticketsuccesspodcast.com/guest.